തുടക്കം കുറിക്കുന്നത് സ്ഥാപകനായ VC പത്മനാഭൻ അവരുടെ ഓർമ്മയ്ക്ക് അദ്ദേഹത്തിനെ ആദരിച്ചുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഈ ഒരു lecture session ആരംഭിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്. Very visionary leader, the founder of Manappuram Group. Over the years, we've had the good fortune of eminent personalities from the academic and business worlds delivering the commemorative lecture, and today is no exception. We are poised to listen to a wonderful lecture on the topic Transforming India, and we are indeed privileged to host Sri Amitabh Kant, IAS, CEO Niti Aayog, New Delhi. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you, to the dignitaries on and off stage, to our dear friends, our students, to the commemorative lecture session. We have our dignitaries on stage already. Start the work in the name of God, we say. May the Almighty shower His blessings on this lecture series and all those who are attending it. Let us rise just for 1 minute. ഒരു നിമിഷം നമുക്ക് എഴുന്നേറ്റ് നിൽക്കാം. മൗന പ്രാർത്ഥനയോടുകൂടി ഇന്നത്തെ ഈ lecture session നമുക്ക് ആരംഭിക്കാം. Thank you. We've begun on a positive note. ഏവരെയും സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നതിനായി മണപ്പുറത്തിന്റെ സാരഥി ശ്രീ VP Nandakumar, MD and CEO Manappuram Finance Limited, അദ്ദേഹത്തെ ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു. Please. He will be delivering the welcome note.
Most respected CEO of Niti Aayog, Mr. Amitabh Kant, my colleague on the board, Mr. Ravindra Babu, my son, Suraj Nandan, and Mr. T. Balakrishnan, who was the jury chairman for selecting these awardees for this year, distinguished men and women in the audience, and my dear friends. This year's commemorative VC Padmanabhan commemorative lecture that is being handled by a very important person in Indian planning. Niti Aayog, as you know, now after the planning commission is abolished, Niti Aayog has taken over that, and it's the planning as well as supervision of its execution, as I understand. So a person like Mr. Amitabh Kant, to get him to deliver that lecture on a very, very important subject, transforming India, it was because we were very, very lucky enough to get him. It is because of the persuasion from Mr. Balakrishnan, who happened to be his batchmate in IAS and in Kerala also. Only because of him we could get him here. I am really thankful to Mr. Balakrishnan, sir, because of that today this year's lecture program is being handled by Mr. Amitabh Kant. The Transforming India, he is also an integral part of its execution. So not only in theory, a person who is associated so much with that, when he says that how the government is planning transforming India, especially in an era of technology where disruption is happening in every area of life, business, industry, because of the technology. Now, in an era of technological disruption, a country like India, which is poised to grow at a rate of around 7.5% or even more, our distinguished speaker will enlighten more about that, how we are going to achieve that. We got such a very important person who is really driving that, and who is really, as we all perceive, is the conscious keeper of our Prime Minister. This is what we perceive. So, because he has great ideas, to execute that, we should have a very senior bureaucrat at the helm of affairs. We got such a great person, such an eminent person today. So, when I request to the audience, especially to the students who is in the backward rows, you please come forward. This is a very important subject. We are lucky to listen from such an eminent person. So you should listen also with patience, and I hope he will admit few questions also, and which he may answer a few questions also. He may take up few questions also. So what we should do when such a person is delivering his address, we should be silent. We should switch off all our mobiles. Only when we are in a listening mode, yeah, we will be able to hear more from him, and he will be enthused to answer our questions. So this year we have a lot of gratitude for accepting our request to do the VC Padmanabhan Memorial Lecture for the year 2017. My responsibility here is to welcome the distinguished guests here and the audience. At the outset, may I welcome our distinguished speaker, Sri Amitabh Kant, IAS, for the, yeah. I also welcome my colleague on the board, our Executive Director, Mr. Ravindra Babu. I also welcome Suraj Nandan, who is going to propose the vote of thanks. We have very eminent people in the audience, our senior directors in the audience. We have, including jury members in the audience, Dr. Krishnan Nair and others in the audience. We have the members from the professional bodies like the CA, local CA Institute chapter, ICWA chapter and CS chapter here. We have the students from various management institutes in the neighborhood. We have senior employees from our own company who wanted to really listen this. So I request all of you to carefully listen and raise some valid questions if you really require that. With these few words, I welcoming all the distinguished guests here and other my colleagues here, as well as the distinguished members in the audience, as well as everybody here. I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A warm welcome to you as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the one word that is the catchword of these days is change. Everything is changing. We are changing. Kerala, very small state tucked away cozily on the southern part of the country, is all set to receive its first metro within 2 days. അങ്ങനെ കുറേ മാറ്റങ്ങൾക്ക് നമ്മൾ സാക്ഷ്യം വഹിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഈ ഒരു കാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ ഏറ്റവും റെലവൻ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ടോപ്പിക്കിൽ സംസാരിക്കാനായിട്ടാണ് അടുത്ത കീനോട്ട് സ്പീക്കറിനെ ഞാൻ ക്ഷണിക്കാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. ബട്ട് ബിഫോർ ദാറ്റ് ഇറ്റ് വുഡ് ബി അൺഫെയർ ഇഫ് വി ഡിഡ് നോട്ട് ഫോർമലി ഇൻട്രൊഡ്യൂസ് ഹിം ടു ദ ഗാദറിംഗ്. ഇൻ ഓർഡർ ടു പ്രസന്റ് the keynote speaker, I'd like to invite Shri V. N. Ravindra Babu, Executive Director, Manappuram Finance, please.
Respected President and CEO of Manappuram Group, Sri V. P. Nandakumar, Sri Amitabh Kant, who is giving the lecture today, Sri Suraj Nandan, SVP, Manappuram Finance Limited, my dear board members, other distinguished personalities attended here, students. Today, we are going to listen an important topic, Niti Aayog, how it is contributing to India's economic development. This is a part of today's VC Padmanabhan Memorial Annual Lecture Program. Began in year 2003 and commemorates the visionary founder of Manappuram Group, Sri VC Padmanabhan. Over the years, we have heard prominent individuals from government, business and academics to deliver the commemorative lecture. And today, Mr. Amitabh Kant. He is the current CEO of Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog stands for National Institution for Transforming India. In the morning session, our chief guest has already introduced him, his office, his job, and he emphasized that he is the next to the Narendra Modi's office. I mean, the topmost bureaucrats which is working for India's development. And that eminent personality is sitting here and delivering the lecture to you. This was, in fact, this is started in 2015 to replace the Planning Commission as a prima think tank of the Government of India. So those who are aware of the Planning Commission's workings and the current workings of the Niti Aayog, you will get an opportunity to compare and give your impression on the subject, especially in the era of technological disruption. Being CEO, Mr. Amitabh Kant is the right person to talk on the topics, how it is contributing to India's economic development. Sri Amitabh Kant is a member of Indian Administrative Service, belonged to Kerala, cadre of the 1980 batch. And of course, he started from Thrissur. This is what he's told in the morning. Thank you, sir. Before taking over CEO of Niti Aayog, Sri Amitabh Kant was Secretary, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. And in previous assignments, he has worked as Chairman and CEO, Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor Corporation, CMD of ITDC, and Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. As an IAS officer who began his career in Kerala cadre, Amitabh Kant was Secretary, Tourism, Government of Kerala, Managing Director, Kerala State Industrial Development Corporation, District Collector of Kozhikode, and Managing Director of Mulsifed. During his tenure in Kerala, he structured the Calicut Airport as a private sector project and the Mattancheri Bridge under private-public partnership. He was also responsible for introducing new technology, fiberglass crafts and outboard motor in the fisheries sector and launching the beach-level auctions which substantially enhanced the returns of the traditional fishermen. As a district collector, he implemented a major project of urban revival and development through traditional Malabar architecture in creation of Mananchira City Square in Kozhikode. He is the author of Branding India, an Incredible Story, and has been the key driver of campaigns like Make in India, Startup India, and Incredible India. In fact, Kerala Tourism's acclaimed campaign with the tagline Goats on Country, which positions Kerala as a leading tourism destination in the world, was also initiated by him. These campaigns have won several international awards and embraced a host of activities from infrastructure development to the product enhancement, private-public partnership, and positioning and branding. Sri Amitabh Kant did his schooling from Modern School, Delhi, graduation in Economics Honours from St. Stephen's, Delhi University, and MA from Jawaharlal Nehru University. He has attended mid-career programs of the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard and IIM Ahmedabad. Sri Amitabh is a member of steering board of Shaping of Future Production Systems of the World Economic Forum. He has been a recipient of Economic Times Policy Change Agent of the Year Award, the Bloomberg TV Personality of the Award, the NDTV Administrator of the Year Award, and the Distinguished Fellowship of the Institute of Directors. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present before you a thinker, a doer, the man responsible for developing Kerala as a world-leading tourist destination, the eminent civil servant, Sri Amitabh Kant. With these few words, let me introduce Mr. Kant.
Mr. Nandkumar, Mr. Ravinder, Mr. Suraj, Mr. Balakrishnan, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and students. It's a great pleasure for me to deliver this C.V. Padmanabhan Memorial Lecture today, and I would request the students to listen extremely attentively. After the lecture, I will open it up for questions, and I will also ask you some questions on my lecture. So if you are not able to answer me, you will get a 0. So be extremely attentive, be extremely careful about what I am going to say today, so that you can respond to my queries. And while I'm speaking, I don't want any student to talk to each other. Listen carefully to every single word that I'm saying. So it's a great pleasure for me to be here for this C.V. Padmanabhan Memorial Lecture. I would like to compliment Mr. Nandkumar for having institutionalized this lecture series for more than a decade. Mr. Padmanabhan was a great institutional builder. He was a man of compassion. He was a man, great humanitarian. He was a very disciplined man who believed in trust. And therefore, his view was that he will lend only up to 25 lakhs. He will monitor it carefully and he will only lend within this region. But he believed in trust. He believed in faith, and he believed in the development of the region, which all of us must have. But he realized that society cannot grow without financing, and that financing is the brain of the economy, is the heart of the economy. And therefore, you need to finance in the economy. And therefore, today, people like him have left this movement for NBFCs, which are very important. But what delights me is that Mr. Padmanabhan's vision has been transformed manyfold, multifold, by his son, Mr. Nandkumar, who was a banker. And therefore, he took his father's vision to another level, another height, and opened many more branches all over India. He broke this limit of 25 lakhs to much higher level. He grew as the Indian economy grew. He rode the wave of the Indian economy. And therefore, he got into many new areas of growth, of vehicle financing, home financing. And that's the nature. That if India is to grow, each one of you has to grow. Each one of us has to have the vision to transform India. And while you are sitting here today, students, it's not about what you are graduating in or how well you are going to do in your MBA or your college examination. but how you are going to use that degree to transform India, and how you should have the vision to be a great entrepreneur like Mr. Padmanabhan was, or how his son could grow and expand hundredfold because of his ability to transform. And I think while education is important, we must know that beyond education, it's your enterprising spirit which is important. We are growing as a nation at about 7.6% per annum. But if India has to grow over the next 3 decades, it should have the ability to grow at 9 to 10% per annum, year after year, for 3 decades. It's important to do this because post-World War II, Japan did this. When Korea overtook Japan, Korea achieved this for a decade and a half. It grew at 10% plus. And when China overtook Korea, China grew for over 2 decades at 10% plus. So post-World War history in recent times shows that countries can grow at 10% plus. If India grows, India's per capita income is $1,580. If India continues to grow at 7% per annum, 7% per annum, by 2032, we would have taken our per capita income to $4,000. But if we grow at 10% per annum, year after year, by 2032, we would have removed poverty from India, totally removed poverty from India, and our per capita income would be $6,800 per head, per capita. Therefore, the difference between 10% growth and 7% growth is enormous. It's huge. If you grow at 10%, you are doubling your GDP in 7 years' time. 7 years' time, you are doubling your GDP. And in the last 2 decades, China has demonstrated its ability to keep doubling its GDP every 7 years. So 3 decades, it has 2.5 decades, it's grown at 10% plus. In 1975, India and China were at the same level of growth. Exactly the same level of growth in 1975. But since then, China grew at 10%. It kept doubling its income at every 7 years. India grew only at 5%, then it grew at 6%, then it grew at 8%. And therefore, China is 1600. From 100, it went on to 1600. We have remained at 800. So what do we do to catch up? What do we do to lift poverty away from India? What do we do to take our per capita income to 6,800? First and foremost, it's important to understand that this is a rare moment of history in India. When 72% of our population is below the age of 32, we are passing through a window of demographic transition which rarely happens in history. Rarely happens in history. There are light dependency burdens. And no country, it has happened that when you have such low dependency burden and when the population is so young and will keep getting younger and younger till 2040, it has not created wealth. So India must create wealth. For it to be able to provide health, education, nutrition for its people, it must create wealth. So what does India need to do to grow at 10% and create wealth? That is the question we will talk. How do we transform India to be able to do this? First and foremost, my view is that India has made itself a very complicated, complex, and a difficult nation for private sector to do business in. And it's important to understand, particularly for people in Kerala, that wealth is created by private sector. Government has to provide the ecosystem, be a facilitator, be a catalyst, but wealth has to be created by private sector. And for private sector to create wealth, India has added rules, regulation, procedures, paperwork, laws year after year, year after year, year after year. Central government has done this, state government has done this. We've made India the most complicated nation in the world. And therefore, for people to create wealth, you need to dismantle rules, regulation, procedures, paperwork, and acts. Make India easy and simple. If you have simplicity, people will be able to start business, register business in one day. People will be able to do productivity. And therefore, to my mind, one of the key things is that India needs to dismantle a lot of rules and regulation it has built up. So in the central government, our focus is on making India easy and simple. We have, today in Government of India, you can register a company in one day. We've gone for the goods and services tax. After a lot of debate and discussion, we have created the GST Council, which will enable one country, one tax regime. We have created the bankruptcy law so that people who fail, and there's nothing wrong in failing. All over the world, people fail, all entrepreneurs fail. People fail, but then they succeed the third or the fourth time. Doesn't matter, but you should have an exit. So we've created the bankruptcy law. We've created the National Company Law Tribunal. Many things. Government of India has removed 1,200 laws, 1,188 laws from its statutes. That's what the Government of India has done. But India is a very large country. It's bigger than 24 countries of Europe. Much of the work is done in the states. And therefore, the challenge is to make the states easy and simple. How do you make states easy and simple? So one of the things we did was to rank states on ease of doing business. We created a competition among states. We started with 100 points. We said we'll rank states and name and shame them. So first year on ease of doing business, Gujarat came number 1. But the next year, Telangana and Andhra came number 1. Gujarat got dethroned. But the good thing was that the mineral-rich states of Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, the eastern part of India, where there's a lot of mineral resources, they came 3rd and 4th. And they did a lot of dismantling of labor laws, rules, regulation. They've made themselves very easy and simple. Kerala still rates very badly. Kerala was, I think, 17th or 18th in the ease of doing business. So Kerala has to become number 1. If you want to make Kerala grow rapidly, it must become number 1 in ease of doing business. That's important. That's number 1. Make India easy and simple. That's important. Number 2, we must understand that we are in a globalized economy. And in a globalized economy, import-export is a very integral part of the growing process. Japan grew on the back of its exports. It didn't look at its domestic market. Korea grew on exports. China for 2 decades has grown and penetrated all markets across the world on its exports. It's impossible for India to grow without its exports growing. So India must become an integral part of the global supply chain. It must produce to size and scale. We produce too small, we think too small. We keep looking at the domestic market. You have to think big, think large, produce to global size, penetrate global markets, because the price you get in the domestic market is 1/10 of what you get in the international markets. The big money is abroad. And to capture global markets, once you capture them, you're getting 10x of what you get in the domestic market. So India must become an integral part of the global supply chain. We have tried to open up India's economy in the last 3 years. We've opened up foreign direct investment across defense, across construction, across e-commerce, many things. And the foreign direct investment in India has grown by 61%. Foreign direct investment has grown by 61% at a point of time when FDI across the world has fallen by 16%. So foreign direct investment will drive India's domestic economy, it will bring in technology, it will create competition and many more things. So you have to be an integral part of the global supply chain. You must be able to promote. Many people say that you keep producing to domestic market. You have a large domestic market. That's all wrong. Domestic market, yes. But use the domestic market as a springboard for export, penetrate global markets. That's what Indians must think of. That's how all countries in the world have grown. There's no exception to that rule. The third point I want to make is that there is a lot of young energy, vibrancy, and dynamism in India. There's a huge startup movement going on in India. There is some unique work being done. I mean, not only in the fact that Flipkart is taking on the Amazon of the world, but across education, across health, across social innovation, a lot of work is being done. There's a young girl called Pranshu Bhandari who's taught 9 million Indians through an app called Hello English, how to speak English. No school, no college has done this. 9 million Indians how to speak English in 1 year. You look at the tsunami in Chennai when it happened, the Tamil Nadu government was not able to reach out to the stranded people. It was not able to provide food. It was a social innovation startup called Social Corps, which has helped Tamil Nadu government to reach out to stranded people and provide food for them. It was young startup which did this. You look at the health feed. Health startups, there's Mitra Biotech, which has relocated from Silicon Valley into Bangalore, doing great work on cancer research, on unique cancer research so that patients can treat themselves for cancer. There's Consumer Medical, which has done some path-breaking work on stool management. And stool management is a very big problem. 16 million Indians suffer, 100 million people abroad suffer. It invented an adapter which is accepted by All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Fortis, Escort, and is today being exported for stool management issue. It's a very major problem. Nobody talks about it in India. You have Portia, a woman entrepreneur called Meena Ganesh started Portia. And that has enabled almost job creation for 23,000 people to reach out to people who are unwell, suffering from major diseases at home. So you have great women entrepreneurs. Meena Ganesh is one. I gave you the example of Pranshu Bhandari. There's Shanti Mohan. And Shanti Mohan runs Let's Venture. And what she does is to put international investors from across the world to provide financing. She does due diligence online and ensures that financing flows into the startups. And she's been able to provide financing for a vast number of young startups like you, many young entrepreneurs like you. So she's pushing for change in India, all online. All due diligence is online. So women entrepreneurs have done very well. You look at Ather Energy, young boys from IIT Chennai have invented a scooter called S340, which has gone into production in Bangalore. And this will be the Tesla of this electric scooter world for the future. Huge disruption taking place by young startups. Or look at a news information like InShots. Many of us in Delhi have stopped reading newspapers. We just read InShots. InShots gets 5 million downloads a day because it gives news in 60 words, just 60 words. And this has been done by dropouts from IIT Delhi. So what you're seeing is a huge amount of disruption taking place across several areas. Or look at education. What made Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook invest in a startup by Baiju? He's invested in Baiju here. Or look at Educom. So huge. Or look at Extra Marks. They're using technology to give better education in schools. All this is the use of technology to disrupt status quo. And all of you, while you're doing your MBA is not the end all of life. Chartered accountancy is not the end all of life. The challenge is that you must break the status quo. You must disrupt India. Until India doesn't get disrupted, it will be very difficult for India to grow at 9 to 10% per annum. In both Japan, China, Korea, young people, look at Jack Ma, what he did with Alibaba in China. He disrupted the Chinese economy. And therefore, unless young people don't disrupt Indian society, it will be very difficult for India to grow. And we'll come to that. The fourth point I want to make is that India is becoming increasingly a very innovative society. A lot of innovation is taking place in India. So if you look at Microsoft's Bing, it was innovated in Bangalore. If you look at GE's low-cost ECG machine, innovated at $2,200, whereas the same machine is made for $25,000 in the United States of America, it has enabled GE to do an ECG for $1 per patient, as compared to $25 in the United States of America. $1. Or if you look at Philips' low-cost recording machine, or if you look at Honeywell's turbocharger, or John Deere's 60 HP tractor, all of them have been innovated either in Bangalore and Hyderabad. They are all this innovation for the globalized world at low cost, combination of technology, innovation, skills, all happening in Bangalore and Hyderabad. In South India, why is it not happening in Kerala? Why is it not happening in Thrissur? We have to question ourselves that why have these states in South India, whereas the education system, and there are more educated people in Kerala, and the social advancement is much more, why is this not happening in Kerala? Why is this disruption? Why is this frugal engineering? Why is this low-cost manufacturing not happening in Kerala? And therefore, Malayalis need to disrupt, do frugal engineering, penetrate global markets. That's a must. The fifth point I want to make is that India must use technology to leapfrog. Unless we don't do this, it will be very difficult to grow at high rates. And this is particularly important in the context of the fact that we are a country with 1 billion biometrics. We are the only country in the world with 1 billion biometric. We are the only country in the world with 1 billion mobile. We are the only country in the world which has gone through financial inclusion, what is called the JAM Trinity. The Aadhaar, the mobile, the biometric, all is being used today to technologically leapfrog. We've had this huge movement of digital payment. It can't be that India aims to become a $10 trillion economy with a $5 trillion formal economy and a $5 trillion black economy. No country in the world has had a black economy with a money economy like this. 85%, 87% of the transactions in India are all in cash. 95% of personal expenditure is in cash. And therefore, what the government has pushed for is use digital payments. And what it has pushed for is a new app called Bheem, which has had which has had about 23 million downloads. We've pushed for Bhim Aadhaar. That is, you use your thumb impression or your iris to do all transactions. And in the future, whether we like it or not, all transactions will be digital. Next 4 to 5 years, India will be the first country in the world to make ATMs, POS machine, debit card, credit cards, all redundant. All of them will become redundant, and we will use our Aadhaar, our thumb impression to do all our transaction, because it will be very simple and easy. One, it will be simple and easy. And number two, when you use credit card, you are paying 3% to banks for credit risk assessment. When you use debit card, you pay 1.5%. But when you use your own mobile and your own thumb impression, when you use your thumb impression, there's no issue of cyber security. So you use your own thumb impression and you use your own mobile to do transaction. It is without any charges. And therefore, mobile will become the bank, it will become the wallet for India. And this will happen because as I went to Krishna and Godavari district in Andhra Pradesh, the poor people are using Aadhaar-enabled payment. I went to Jharkhand, the tribal people are using Aadhaar-enabled payment. So young people must push for Bhim, download Bhim, use Bhim Aadhaar, use your biometric, link your bank account with your Aadhaar number, your mobile. You can do a mobile-to-mobile transaction, you can do an Aadhaar-to-Aadhaar transaction, you can do a bank-to-bank transaction. Now all these changes are critical. The sixth point I want to make is that urbanization will be critical. We'll see a lot of urbanization happen in India. In the next 4 to 5 decades, you will see over 500 million people getting into new cities. While Kerala is urbanized, a lot of states still have not seen urbanization, and therefore you will see movement from rural area to urban area. Now, we must understand that cities account for just 3% of the earth land mass, 3% of the earth land mass. But cities account for 80%. 80% of the global GDP comes from cities. But cities are also responsible for 75% of the CO2 emissions in the world. But cities are centers of growth, they are centers of dynamism, they are centers of progress. Whether we like it or not, people will move from rural areas to urban areas. Now, if we follow the model of the Western world, when America urbanized, land, gas and water were cheaply available. And because they were cheaply available, America had the luxury of living in New Jersey, traveling to New York, travel in limousine, guzzle gas. It created cities like Atlanta, where 99% of the people travel by car. So Americans created cities for cars and not for people. The rest of the world has followed the American model. We need to change that model and create cities on the back of public transportation. You need to have metros. You need to go back to walking. You need to go back to cycling. You need to have bus systems, integrated bus systems. And that is why what Cochin is doing, linking up metro with waterways, with buses, etc., is the right model. Because if we follow the American model, you need so much of resources. You need 4 planet Earth. 4 planet Earth. If India was to follow the model of the Western world. Because your population is very big. But you have only 1 planet. And because you have 1 planet, India has the opportunity to do innovative and sustainable urbanization. And therefore, India can create a model of innovative and sustainable urbanization for the rest of the world. And therefore, one of the biggest challenges will be of urbanization. How do we design our cities? How we do public transportation? How do we do our recycling of water like Singapore does? Every drop of water is recycled. Every drop of water is recycled. How do we recycle our waste? And it's a big question as to how Kerala can be a progressive society if it doesn't recycle its waste, if it doesn't recycle its water, and pumps all its waste into the sea and into the rivers of Kerala. And not one city of Kerala has an integrated management plan for waste and water. You can't progress. This can be no progress. So the first and foremost thing is have proper drainages, have proper waste systems, recycle every drop of water, and ensure that every water is recycled. That's how it can be good modern urbanization. The sixth point I want to make is, the seventh point I want to make is that it will be very difficult for India to grow rapidly without gender parity, till we don't create jobs for our women. Because in India's GDP, women, world average for GDP, women's contribution to GDP is 40%. 40% of the GDP comes from women, including in Africa. 40% contribution comes from women. In India, only 17% of the GDP comes from women, and by number, only 24% of the women work. Until women don't contribute to GDP, it will be very difficult for India to grow. And therefore, as a conscious policy, we need to promote gender parity in economics, gender parity in employment. And women must be put forward to work. They must be an integral part of your GDP creation. But the good thing is that we have started providing opportunity for women, and wherever we have started providing opportunity for women, women are doing better than men. If you look at the UPSC exam for IAS, last 3 years topper are women. In my own college, St. Stephen's College, when I studied, there were no women. When I was passing out, it became co-ed. But today you go to the economics class, 90 to 91% of the students in that class are all girls, on merit are all girls. So the principal of St. Stephen's College said that we should give 10% extra marks to boys so that it can remain a co-ed college. It became a big issue. But when I went to Christ Church College, I saw a lot of girls, so I asked the Vice Chancellor, he said that we give 15% extra marks to boys. And yet, the girls, it's full of girls, the girls are doing much better than boys everywhere. So my view is that in the long run, girls, if we keep giving opportunity, women will do very well in India. So that's an important point. The next, 8th important point I want to make is that in India, almost 55% of our population is dependent on agriculture. That's too big a population. You have a lot of disguised unemployment. So you need to take population away from agriculture, put it into manufacturing. And therefore, manufacturing must grow rapidly. But manufacturing itself is going through a huge disruption. There's a huge technological wave across the world. The process of manufacturing is getting digitized. The process of manufacturing is getting digitized. If you go to Tesla factory, which I did with the Prime Minister, it's a digital factory. The consumer decides and retail sales, everything is digital. So the point of production is based on what the consumer wants. And therefore, you can't stop the process of digitization. India has an advantage. We have put in investments into our IITs, our IIMs, we are very good at software, and therefore we must embrace technology. And especially Malayalis must embrace technology and use this wave of what is now known as the 4th industrial revolution or intelligent manufacturing to leapfrog, technologically leapfrog. And if you do smart manufacturing of tomorrow, Kerala can use digital technology to get into manufacturing. Don't bypass manufacturing. It has huge perils, but use technology to leapfrog. So therefore, manufacturing, use of digitization is important. Now, if you do this, a lot of disruption, as I said, is happening place. In the last 45 years, the government had issued only 11 bank licenses. In the last 18 months, it has given licenses to 21 payment bank, 2 other bank licenses. So 23 in last 18 months as compared to 11 in 45 years. What the government is pushing for is financial inclusion. We've seen in recent times the disruption which Reliance Jio has done. In 150 days, it was able to acquire 110 million consumers, 110 million consumers. In 150 days, across the world, this has taken minimum 7 years. 150 million consumers has taken 7 years. The cost of acquisition per customer was as low as $1, whereas the cost of acquisition of a consumer in the telecom sector abroad is about $25 to $30. That is how the numbers are falling. The numbers are falling very radically. You look at the banking sector. If you go to a physical bank, 60 rupees per transaction cost. If you go to ATM, 17 rupees. If you go through mobile, it's 0 cost. So technology will be the biggest source of disruption. And therefore, Indians must embrace technology, must push for technology, must push for frugal engineering, and that is important. And if we do this, you will see a lot of you doing young entrepreneurship, doing young startup, doing young disruption, and disrupting Indian society and taking India to a high trajectory growth rate. But for all this to happen, several things need to happen. There are several challenges. The first challenge is that we must have consistency, predictability, and clarity of policies over a long run, which is what the government is trying to do. The second, as I said, is women are very important to this growth process. To my mind, gender parity is very critical. Third is that our productivity levels must rise. Our productivity levels are very low. Total factor productivity in Japan, Korea, China grew very rapidly. Our productivity levels means that there must be greater reforms and business process re-engineering. Land, labor. We can't have 21st century with 19th century laws and rules. You have to transform your labor laws, you have to transform your land laws to 21st century requirement with 19th century regulations. You can't have 21st century growth with 19th century institutions. You can't have Medical Council of India in 21st century. You can't have UGC and AICTE in its present form for 21st century. You need to transform institutions. And institutional transformation is necessary. And the last point is that we need increased productivity in agriculture. We need a second green revolution, and for that we need productivity. And we need a huge thrust on technology and productivity in the agriculture sector. So this is my broad view. We've moved from Planning Commission, 5-year plans, annual plan, to the Niti. Niti Aayog has been tasked with the job of preparing 15-year vision document. 15-year vision document, 7-year strategy document, and 3-year action plan, so that you can have more action-oriented work. The action plan of 3 years has already been prepared. It has been put in the public domain. It's available on the net. Please do read it. It has some very refreshing thoughts. But we'll have a 15-year vision. We'll have a 7-year plan. But more than that, the Niti Aayog works as the right hand, the eyes and ears of the government to do a lot of disruption. It is pushing for disinvestment in several areas. It is pushing for institutional changes, and it is pushing for a higher trajectory growth rate in many areas. I have very little time, so I'll just request you to ask me any questions. With this few words, I'll conclude. I have to take a flight. I'll wait for about 3-4 questions. Anyone who has a question, I'll be very happy to respond to it.
Thank you very much for the riveting lecture. I have a very basic question. The thrust of your talk was about growth. Growth, growth, and more growth.
Is about?
Growth. Huh. You have talked about growth, the importance of growth, for India to catch up with the rest of. You have, may I draw your attention to the fact that you have delivered this lecture in a state where the intelligentsia has for long disdained growth. Their focus, their argument is that what matters more is equity. Was the omission of the word equity in your lecture deliberate? Where do you stand on this equity versus debate, equity versus growth question? Thank you.
No, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. Where do I stand on this debate of growth versus equity? Now, first and foremost, you can't have equity without growth. You can't keep distributing poverty. So you have to have growth. But you can't have growth without health and education. You can't have growth without health, education, and nutrition, and that I totally agree. I didn't want to stress on that point because I'm speaking in Kerala where you have already achieved social advancement. You are very advanced in health and education. If I was speaking in UP, MP, or Chhattisgarh, I would have stressed on health. My belief is that there are 7 states of India and there are 100 districts of India where we need to focus on health, education, nutrition. The focus has to be, you can't grow till you have not lifted people above India's average on health, education, and nutrition. I'm a great believer that 7 states of India need to be transformed on health, education, and nutrition. But these are states of the eastern part of India and not the southern part of India. We must understand that the southern part of India and the western part of India does very well. And actually, if you look at the rankings of, if you were to do a ranking of states, which we are trying to attempt on health and education, Kerala will do very well. But the Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, etc. will not do well. Those we need to focus there on health, education, and nutrition. But Kerala, having achieved social advancement, it must leapfrog in manufacturing. You've already achieved the social indices. Why? You are already on par with the Western world on health, education, and nutrition. Now you use that to become the world's best. Why should you not be another Singapore? But if you were to create a competition among states on health, education, which we have done, health and education, I'm quite sure that Kerala will do very well, and we need to create a sense of competition among states and focus on states on the eastern part of India on health and education. I'm a great believer in equity. But having achieved equity, push for growth. Yes, any question at the back? No, let the students ask. No, let me see how bright are the students of Thrissur. No, you are not a student.
I am not a student.
Yeah.
I second MA Economics from Calicut University.
From Calicut. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, you speaking transforming India in one side, lot of programs and a lot of, you not speak about the other side of India. Our Prime Minister says making India, made in India. Okay, it is right. But when we look into other side of India, the infrastructure facilities of India is very less, very low. Sir, I would like to speak in Malayalam also.
Speak. But ask a question, don't give a parallel speech.
Not a question. This is my worries about our country.
Eh?
This is not a question. This is my worries about my country. Because in Odisha, സ്വന്തം ഭാര്യയുടെ മൃതദേഹം സ്വന്തം ശിരസിലേറ്റി നടക്കുന്ന ഇന്ത്യയാണ് നമ്മൾ കാണുന്നത്. You speaking about the commercialization?
No.
Other side.
One second. You see, I'll tell you, other thing, in Kerala,
Not Kerala.
In India, let me tell you, health, education, nutrition are very important. Health, education, nutrition are very important. They are very important in 7 states of India. India must lift itself above the Indian average in all these states. But in Kerala has already excelled in these areas. And therefore, Kerala needs to think ahead, get into new areas. Why should you not get into biotechnology? Why should you not get into more advanced manufacturing? Why should you not do import and do value addition? Now, there's no point talking about, if I go to Chhattisgarh, I talk about health, education, and nutrition, not in Kerala. Kerala has invested heavily. In fact, now, You need more efficiency in health and education. So this is not the place to talk about health. You have done very well. Get into new areas of growth. Disrupt through startups. Use technology, even existing health and education startups, like that boy Baiju has done in Calicut. Disrupt. That Sanjay Kumar has started that startup village. Please go and start up, do 3 or 4 more startup villages. Okay, any other question?
Sir,
No, I got the question. Ayurveda is very important.
Yes.
And that is why Ayurveda is very significant to Kerala. It is the core competency of Kerala. That is why when I was Secretary Tourism, we did not approach Kerala tourism like the Western world has done. We went back to Kerala's roots. We brought back Kerala's architecture. We brought back Kerala's martial arts. We brought back Kerala's cuisine. But more important, we brought back Kerala's Ayurveda. That is very, very important, and that is a big job creator.
So can you give me your solution, sir? We are not materialized. Last 10 years, nothing to materialize. Our Prime Minister also mentioned the same matter. Our State Minister also materialized. But nothing to materialize the promotion of Ayurveda on the right path. Including you have mentioned the engineering, anything, research, everything very slow. Including Council of Indian CCIM. Everywhere very slow. That is why I humble your suggestion. What is your future, the 15 years vision? How you promote the Ayurveda in correct place? That is my request, sir. Please.
Yeah. So, you know, I can't take over the functioning of Ayurveda in Kerala. I mean, I can't do this. So I'm sitting in Delhi, but I think a lot of you Ayurvedic practitioners should put pressure on government of Kerala to make improvements or whatever promotion or whatever you want. Make a blueprint, make a plan, and get Kerala government to accept that and push for it.
Sir, it was a very wonderful speech, and you was talking about disruption and growth. And for disruption to happen, you have to have the right atmosphere here, right milieu here, right infrastructure here. And also there is you notice that the brightest boys of India after from IIT or IIM, they are migrating abroad. So my first question is, how do you arrest this brain drain? Second question is the disruption you said, and about the new technology being, new people being starting new startups and all that.
You know, failure is an integral part of startup movement. In Silicon Valley, 9 out of 10 startups fail. You know, it's only in India that parents, children, we are obsessed with failure. You know, my son will not become an entrepreneur. He'll become a clerk in government of Kerala, but he'll not become an entrepreneur because we are worried about his failure. No. Every single guy who has done you look at Mark Zuckerberg, you look at Bill Gates, you look at everybody has failed. They failed once, they failed twice, they failed thrice. 4th time they've become billionaires. Failure is an integral part of the startup movement. You want to drive risk-taking. You want to ask students to take risks, allow them to fail. Doesn't matter. The startup movement is based on the fact that 9 out of 10 will fail. Don't worry. But when they succeed, they'll make it big. That's how countries grow. There's no startup in Silicon Valley which hasn't failed. You know, I get surprised when Indians say this. Indian parents are obsessed with government jobs. Indian parents are obsessed with their sons not doing entrepreneurship because they worry about failure. Startups will fail, but there are many startups who will succeed, and when they succeed, they will make it big. They will take India to dizzying heights. Don't worry about that. What is the first question you asked? Brain drain will happen. Doesn't matter. You know, brain drain happens because you have to have the ecosystem. If America has a better ecosystem, people will go there. You make India grow at 9 to 10%, people will come back from there. When India was growing, all Indians were coming back from there to India, from abroad. So create the ecosystem for growth, and India will, all brain drain there'll be a reverse brain drain from there. Don't worry about it. So last question, anyone who has a question?
Good afternoon.
Yeah, let these young boys ask. Last question.
Thank you for the lecture, sir. It was very informative. I want to ask you one question. Like, India being a country of 131 crore people, it is important for our country to emerge as a manufacturing hub of the world, because we have to create jobs for the 131 crore people. So how do we ensure that we will have an environment where a globally competitive company like Facebook can emerge from India? And how can...
So I said that you will have to, the ecosystem is about ensuring that disruption takes place. Why are there more startups happening in Bangalore? They've created the linkage between industry and education. You have to create that linkage of your colleges with the industry. Why is it that frugal engineering is taking place in Hyderabad? Why is it that companies are going to Hyderabad and Bangalore? You allow manufacturing and industries to come here. You have to create that ecosystem in Kerala for frugal engineering to take place. It'll all happen here. It'll all happen here. You have to create people of Kerala have to help create that ecosystem. Politicians of Kerala have to create. You have to compete with Bangalore and Hyderabad. I'm not even saying you compete with Singapore and Silicon Valley. But why should you not compete with with Bangalore and Hyderabad? Why should all global innovations happen there? Just repeat what they have done. You don't need anything else. So thank you very much. Great pleasure. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Sorry for this.
We understand you have spared a lot of your time for us. Before we move to the next event, we would like to present a memento to our keynote speaker, Shri V.P. Nandakumar. May I request you, sir, to present this memento as a token of our gratitude and appreciation to Shri Amitabh Kant, IAS. Thank you. You made some very important pointers to remember, right from how education and enterprising spirit should be clubbed together, to the need for gender parity, to the need for disruption, to bringing about a new green revolution, the blueprint for transforming India. Thank you for sparing time. You'd like to say something? Yes. Mr. Suraj would like to propose a vote of thanks.
Today, and distinguished keynote speaker, Mr. Amitabh Kant, IAS and CEO, NITI Ayog, Mr. V.P. Nandakumar, MD and CEO, Manappuram Finance, Mr. B.N. Rabindra Babu, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very good evening to you all. It gives me a great pleasure to propose this vote of thanks on behalf of Manappuram Finance, from its employees to distinguished speakers in this forum. Today, we are especially beholden to have Mr. Amitabh Kant, whose keynote lecture on the topic of transforming India. Sir, coming from a person of your authority, many of us here would like to see the words as real hope that India will soon claim its rightful place amongst advanced countries of the world. And he emphasized more on the attitudes of the people, like attitudes that how much, especially a state like Kerala, where we are ranking one of the lowest, 17th place, and how much we need to emphasize and reduce some of the things that we need to, a lot of change needs to take place to urbanize Kerala. He also spoke about gender parity and sustainable urbanization.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. We totally understand. In fact, we've been partially responsible for this delay. So thank you, and hope you do catch your flight. And thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the keynote speaker, Shri Amitabh Kant, IAS, who took time to share his thoughts with us. He's making his move. Thank you. And one quick message to our audience here. Please do stay back for another 5 more minutes, because we will have the mini convocation ceremony. Just another 5 minutes. Please do spare for us. We have some of our employees who have received their MBA degree certificate from the Bharatiyar University. So we would like to present the certificates to them. in your presence. ഒരു 5 മിനിറ്റും കൂടെ ഒന്ന് സ്റ്റേ ബാക്ക് ചെയ്യണമെന്ന് അഭ്യർത്ഥിക്കുകയാണ്. ചെറിയൊരു കോൺവൊക്കേഷൻ സെറിമണിയും കൂടെ ബാക്കിയുണ്ട്. പ്ലീസ് ഡു സ്റ്റേ ബാക്ക്. താങ്ക് യു. ആൻഡ് we have our dignitaries here on stage. Also joining them on stage would be Sri Vijay Kumar, the former Chief Commissioner of Income Tax. We would like to invite you, sir, on stage, please. And with great joy, may I request Sri Avas Master, Principal of Maya College, Valapad. There he is. Please. Convocation ceremony kaayittu thayaredukkana. Meanwhile, a quick brief about this event. This is the 9th batch that is passing out. For the last few years, Manappuram has been promoting its employees to go on for higher education. ഓരോ വർഷവും 25 സ്റ്റാഫ് മെമ്പേഴ്സിനെ സെലക്ട് ചെയ്ത് അവരുടെ ഉപരിപഠനത്തിനായുള്ള സ്പോൺസർഷിപ്പ് മണപ്പുറം ഏറ്റെടുക്കുകയാണ്. അങ്ങനെ 9ാമത്തെ ബാച്ച് ഇന്നിവിടെ പാസ് ഔട്ട് ചെയ്യുകയാണ്. 25 കുട്ടികളുണ്ട്. അതിൽ ഇന്ന് 19 പേർക്ക് ഇവിടെ പ്രസൻറ്റ് ആവാനായിട്ട് പറ്റിയിട്ടുള്ളൂ. ബട്ട് ഓൾ 25 ഓഫ് ദെം ഹാവ് qualified to complete their MBA degree that is being presented by the Bharatiyar University. So we are very proud here. We are very proud of our employees who are moving on to the next levels in their career. One more time, I'd like to invite Sri V.N. Ravindra Babu, the Executive Director of Manappuram Finance, to present the certificates. We are ready for the mini convocation of our employees. And to do the honors, we have our chief guests here. I'd like to call we'll probably call them as students for now. നമ്മുടെ സ്വന്തം ഫാമിലി മെമ്പേഴ്സാണ്. മണപ്പുറത്തിൻ്റെ വലിയ കുടുംബത്തിൻ്റെ അംഗങ്ങളാണ് അവരെല്ലാവരും തന്നെ. പക്ഷേ ഇന്ന് അവർ സ്റ്റുഡൻസ് ആയിട്ടാണ് വരുന്നത്. I'd like to invite the first person here on stage, Egalavyan. So Egalavyan, please if you could come here on stage and receive your convocation. He will be followed by Mr. Ajit. After Mr. Ajit would be Mr. Prashant V. Mr. Egalavyan followed by Mr. Ajit. He will be followed by Mr. Prashant. Congratulations. Mr. Ajit followed by Mr. Prashant. After Mr. Prashant will be Mr. Saji Kumar. Mr. Saji Kumar A. Mr. Ajit T.S. receives the certificate. ഇവരെല്ലാവരും തന്നെ MBA ഹോൾഡേഴ്സ് ആണ്. They have received the strength of education to move forward. Mr. Ajit followed by Mr. Prashant. Mr. Prashant followed by Mr. Saji Kumar, and then we will have Mr. Nidish O. After Mr. Nidish will be Mr. Hemant. After Mr. Hemant, we will have Mr. Nidish again, Mr. Nidish PP. Mr. Nidish O, Mr. Hemant V now, Mr. Nidish PP. തുടർന്ന് Mr. Mehboob. After Mehboob, we'll have Ms. Preeti PV. After Preeti PV, we'll have Mrs. Rajita PR. After Mrs. Rajita PR, Ms. Subina AS. അതിനുശേഷം എത്തുന്നത് സുഷ്മിത CS. We have Subina AS followed by Mrs. Sushmita CS, and then we'll have Ramya MR. Mrs. Ramya MR followed by Ms. Sharanya M. After Ms. Sharanya will be Tindumol NK. After Mrs. Tindumol will be ഒരാൾക്ക് ഇത്രയും കയ്യടി കിട്ടിയുള്ളൂ. എല്ലാം കൂടെ ഒരുമിച്ച് അവസാനം ചോദിക്കാമെന്ന് ഞാൻ വിചാരിച്ചു. ഇതേ കയ്യടി എല്ലാവർക്കും കൊടുത്തോളൂ കേട്ടോ. Then we have Mrs. Sijarani. After Mrs. Sijarani will be Shirley PB. And joining her is Mr. Chandra Das. And then finally we have Durga Prasad. We have 19 of them here on stage. As mentioned earlier, 25 of them have received their MBA degrees. Only 19 of them could make it to the event today. നമ്മുടെ ഇവിടെ നിന്നും 9ാമത്തെ ബാച്ചാണത്. ആദ്യത്തെയും രണ്ടാമത്തെയും ആ ബാച്ചസിൽ നിന്നും ഒക്കെ പാസ് ഔട്ട് ആയവർ പല പല ഹയർ പോസ്റ്റിൽ ഓൾറെഡി പോസ്റ്റഡ് ആണ് ഇപ്പോൾ. സോ ദിസ് ഇസ് ദെയർ പാത്ത് ഇൻ ദെയർ ladder to success. ഒരുപാട് വിജയങ്ങൾ ഇവർക്ക് കൈവരിക്കാനായിട്ട് സാധിക്കട്ടെ. ഒരുപാട് വർഷങ്ങൾ കഴിഞ്ഞ് നല്ലൊരു ഈവൻ ഹയർ ലെവലിലേക്ക് എത്തുമ്പോൾ മണപ്പുറത്തിന് ഒരുപാട് സന്തോഷത്തോടെ പറയാം, we have been instrumental in one way or the other in them achieving success. Thank you all. Congratulations to all of you once again. And now to felicitate, I would like to invite our very beloved Avaz Master. സംസാരിക്കുന്നതിനായി അദ്ദേഹത്തെ ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു.
ആദരണീയനായ മണപ്പുറം ഫിനാൻസിൻ്റെ MD-യും CEO-യുമായ ശ്രീ VP നന്ദകുമാർ, വൈസ് പ്രസിഡന്റ് ശ്രീ സൂരജ്, ശ്രീ വിജയകുമാർ, ശ്രീ രവീന്ദ്രബാബു, സദസ്സിലെ ആദരണീയരായ വ്യക്തികളെ, ഉത്ബുദ്ധരായ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളെ, അധ്യാപകരെ, സുഹൃത്തുക്കളെ, ഈ മഹത്തായ ഒരു ചടങ്ങിൻ്റെ ഭാഗമാകാൻ കഴിഞ്ഞതിൽ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് അതിയായ ആഹ്ലാദമുണ്ട്, സന്തോഷമുണ്ട്. ഇതിന് ഒരവസരം തന്ന മണപ്പുറം ഫിനാൻസിൻ്റെ ഭരണാധികാരികളോട്, നേതൃത്വം വഹിക്കുന്നവരോട്, ഞങ്ങളുടെ സ്ഥാപനത്തിനുള്ള വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾക്കുള്ള, അധ്യാപകർക്കുള്ള ഹൃദയം നിറഞ്ഞ നന്ദി രേഖപ്പെടുത്തുകയാണ്. ഒപ്പം തന്നെ 5 പ്രമുഖ വ്യക്തികളെ മണപ്പുറം ആദരിക്കുകയുണ്ടായി. കഴിഞ്ഞ പ്രാവശ്യത്തേതുപോലെ തന്നെ വളരെ ബ്രില്യൻ്റായിട്ടുള്ളൊരു സെലക്ഷനാണ് ഇപ്രാവശ്യം ഉണ്ടായത്. ഈ അവാർഡിന് അർഹരായിട്ടുള്ള എല്ലാവരെയും മായയുടെ പേരിൽ വീണ്ടും അഭിനന്ദിക്കാൻ ആഗ്രഹിക്കുകയാണ്. ഒപ്പം തന്നെ ഒട്ടേറെ പ്രതികൂല സാഹചര്യങ്ങളെ മറികടന്നുകൊണ്ട് ഒരു ഭാഗത്ത് അവരുടെ ജോലി, കുടുംബം, എല്ലാ പ്രയാസങ്ങളെയും പ്രശ്നങ്ങളെയും വളരെ തൻ്റേടപൂർവം ധീരതയോടെ അഭിമുഖീകരിച്ച് MBA ബിരുദം നേടിയ ഞങ്ങളുടെ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളെ ഈ സന്ദർഭത്തിൽ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾക്ക് ഹൃദയം നിറഞ്ഞ അഭിനന്ദനങ്ങൾ അറിയിക്കുകയാണ്. ഇവിടെ ഒട്ടേറെ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളുണ്ട്. അവർക്കൊക്കെ തന്നെ ഇത് മാതൃകയാവേണ്ടതാണ്. ഭാരിച്ച ഉത്തരവാദിത്വം നിലനിൽക്കുമ്പോൾ തന്നെ MBA പോലുള്ള ഒരു പ്രൊഫഷണൽ ഡിഗ്രി നേടുവാൻ അവർ കാണിച്ച ആ ഒരു ഡെഡിക്കേഷൻ, അതിൻ്റെ ഡിറ്റർമിനേഷൻ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും മാതൃകയാക്കാനാവുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യമാണ്. ഒപ്പം തന്നെ തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും ഈ MBA ഹോൾഡേഴ്സ് മറക്കില്ല എന്ന് ഞാൻ വിചാരിക്കുന്നു. ഇതിനായിട്ടൊരു അവസരം ഉണ്ടാക്കി കൊടുത്ത മണപ്പുറം ഫിനാൻസ് ഈ സ്ഥാപനത്തെയും അതിൻ്റെ ചുക്കാൻ പിടിക്കുന്ന പ്രതിഭാശാലിയായ നന്ദകുമാർ സാറിനെയും MBA ബിരുദ പഠനത്തിലൂടെ നിങ്ങൾ ആർജിച്ച ആ കഴിവ് മണപ്പുറം ഫിനാൻസിൻ്റെ വളർച്ചയ്ക്ക്, വികാസത്തിന് സത്യസന്ധമായും ആത്മാർത്ഥമായും നിങ്ങൾ പ്രയോജനപ്പെടുത്തും, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പ്രയോജനപ്പെടുത്തട്ടെ എന്ന് ഞാൻ ആഗ്രഹിക്കുകയാണ്. ഒരു കാര്യം കൂടി പറഞ്ഞ് നിർത്താം. എനിക്കറിയാം ഇതൊരു ലെങ്തി സ്പീച്ചിനുള്ള ടൈമല്ല എന്ന്. ഞാനിപ്പോൾ തന്നെ എൻ്റെ അധ്യാപകനെ കണ്ടു. ഞാൻ ഡിഗ്രിക്ക് പഠിക്കുമ്പോൾ എന്നെ പഠിപ്പിച്ച ഡോക്ടർ PV കൃഷ്ണൻ നായർ സാർ, അദ്ദേഹം ഇവിടെ ഉണ്ടെന്നാണ് എൻ്റെ ധാരണ. പോയല്ലേ? അദ്ദേഹം ഹിന്ദി അധ്യാപകനാണ്. ഹിന്ദി ക്ലാസ്സുകൾ സാധാരണ കുട്ടികൾക്ക്, ഭൂരിഭാഗം കുട്ടികൾക്ക് ഇഷ്ടമില്ലാത്തതാണ്. പക്ഷേ കൃഷ്ണനായരുടെ ഹിന്ദി ക്ലാസ് കേൾക്കാൻ മലയാളം ക്ലാസ് കട്ട് ചെയ്ത് കുട്ടികൾ എത്താറുണ്ട്. അദ്ദേഹം ഒരു പ്രഭാഷണത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞ കാര്യം ഞാനൊന്ന് ഈ MBA വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളെയും MBA ഹോൾഡേഴ്സിനെയും മറ്റിവിടെ ഇരിക്കുന്ന വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളെയും ഓർമ്മപ്പെടുത്തേണ്ടത് ഒരു പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യമെന്ന് ഞാൻ കരുതുന്നു. വിദ്യാഭ്യാസം അർത്ഥപൂർണ്ണമാണെങ്കിൽ പഠിക്കുന്ന ആ വിഷയത്തിനപ്പുറത്ത് 4 പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യങ്ങൾ അവരുടെ ഉപപഠനമായിട്ട് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഗൗരവമേറിയിട്ടുള്ള ചിന്തയ്ക്കും പഠനത്തിനും വിഷയമാക്കേണ്ടതുണ്ട്, വിഷയീഭവിക്കേണ്ടതുണ്ട്. ആ 4 കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഇതാ. ആ 4 കാര്യങ്ങൾ, ഞാൻ ഇനി പറയാൻ പോകുന്ന 4 കാര്യങ്ങൾ പ്രഗത്ഭരായിട്ടുള്ള അഡ്മിനിസ്ട്രേറ്റേഴ്സായിട്ട് ഒരു മാറാൻ സഹായിക്കും. നമ്മളുടെ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളെ സംബന്ധിച്ചിടത്തോളം ജീവിതത്തിൽ ഉയർന്ന ലക്ഷ്യങ്ങൾ എത്തുന്നതിന് സാധിക്കും. അതിലൊന്ന് അദ്ദേഹം പറഞ്ഞത് ലോകബോധം ഉണ്ടാവണം. രണ്ടാമതായി പറഞ്ഞത് കാലബോധം ഉണ്ടാവണം. മൂന്നാമതായി പറഞ്ഞത് മൂല്യബോധം. 4 കലാബോധം. ഈ 4 അവബോധം നമ്മുടെ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസത്തിനോടൊപ്പം വിദ്യാഭ്യാസത്തിന് ശേഷവും നമ്മൾ വളർത്തിയെടുക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ മാത്രമാണ് നമ്മുടെ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസം തന്നെ അർത്ഥപൂർണ്ണമായെന്ന് പറയാനുള്ളൂ. നമുക്ക് ഒരു ചാമിങ് ക്യാരക്ടറായിട്ട്, ചാമിങ് പേഴ്സണാലിറ്റി ആയിട്ട് നമുക്ക് മാറാനായിട്ടാവുള്ളൂ. എപ്പോഴും അഡ്മിനിസ്ട്രേഷൻ രംഗത്തിരിക്കുന്നവരുടെ അധികാരമല്ല അവരുടെ കീഴിലുള്ള ഉദ്യോഗസ്ഥർ അവരനുസരിപ്പിക്കാനും അവർ സ്നേഹിക്കാനും പ്രേരിപ്പിക്കുന്നത്. അവരുടെ ആ ചാമിങ് പേഴ്സണാലിറ്റിയാണ്. ലോകബോധം ഇവിടെ ശ്രീ അമിതാഭ് കാന്ത് പറയുണ്ടായി, വളരെ വേഗം ഈ സിനാറിയോ വ്യവസായ രംഗത്തും അതേപോലെ സാമ്പത്തിക രംഗത്തൊക്കെ വലിയ വലിയ മാറ്റങ്ങൾ സംഭവിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. നിങ്ങളെ ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു വിഷയങ്ങൾ പഠിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് മാത്രം ഇന്ന് ലോകത്ത് സംഭവിക്കുന്ന വലിയ മാറ്റങ്ങളെക്കുറിച്ച് എങ്ങനെ അറിയാം? അതിനാണ് പറഞ്ഞത്, ഈ മാറ്റങ്ങൾ അറിയണമെങ്കിൽ കാലബോധം ഉണ്ടാവണം. എല്ലാ മേഖലകളിലും അതിഭയങ്കരമായിട്ടുള്ള നീതി എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ തന്നെ എൻ്റെ അർത്ഥം ഇതാ, അതിൻ്റെ ഫുൾ ഫോം നാഷണൽ ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ട് ഫോർ ട്രാൻസ്ഫോമിങ് ഇന്ത്യ. മാറ്റണം, ചേഞ്ച്. ലോകം മുഴുവനും അതിവേഗത്തിൽ മാറിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. നിങ്ങളുടെ അടുത്ത തലമുറ നിങ്ങളെ പരിഹസിക്കും. നിങ്ങൾ കഴിച്ച മരുന്നിനെ പറഞ്ഞ് പരിഹസിക്കും. നിങ്ങൾ യാത്ര ചെയ്ത വണ്ടി, നമ്മൾ പണ്ട് കാളവണ്ടിയെ പറയുന്ന പോലെ, നിങ്ങൾ യാത്ര ചെയ്ത യാത്രാ വാഹനങ്ങൾ, ഇതൊക്കെ ഒച്ചറിയുന്ന പോലെയാണല്ലോ നിങ്ങളൊക്കെ ജീവിച്ചിരുന്നപ്പോൾ മുന്നോട്ട് പോയിരുന്നത്. വിമാനത്തേക്കാൾ വേഗത്തിൽ ഭൂമിയിലൂടെ സഞ്ചരിക്കുന്ന വാഹനങ്ങൾ തയ്യാറായിരിക്കുന്നു. പെട്രോളിൻ്റെ ഒരു ആധിപത്യം തന്നെ ഇതാ അവസാനിക്കാൻ പോകുന്നു. വലിയ വലിയ മാറ്റങ്ങൾക്ക് അപ്പോൾ ഉണ്ടാകുന്ന സാമ്പത്തിക വിഷയങ്ങൾ, ഈ ലോക സാമ്പത്തിക രംഗം സാമൂഹിക രംഗത്തുണ്ടാകുന്ന മാറ്റങ്ങൾ പ്രവചനാതീതമാണ്. വലിയ വലിയ മാറ്റങ്ങൾ സംഭവിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു കാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ അതേക്കുറിച്ചൊന്നും അറിയാതെ, അതേക്കുറിച്ചൊന്നും മനസ്സിലാക്കാതെ കേവലം പുസ്തകത്തിൽ മാത്രം ഒതുങ്ങിയാൽ എന്തായിരിക്കും അവസ്ഥ? ലോകം ഇന്ന് വിരൽത്തുമ്പിലാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ആണ് ലോകബോധം ഉണ്ടാവുമെന്ന് പറയണേ. നമുക്ക് അമേരിക്കക്കാരനായിട്ടും ആഫ്രിക്കക്കാരനായിട്ടും ന്യൂസിലൻഡുകാരനായിട്ടും ഓസ്ട്രേലിയക്കാരനായിട്ടും ഒക്കെ തന്നെ ഇടപാടുകൾ നടത്തേണ്ടി വരുന്നു. അവരൊക്കെയുമായിട്ട് ഇടപെടേണ്ടി വരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ലോകത്തെ കുറിച്ചൊരു ധാരണ ഇല്ലെങ്കിലോ അവരുടെ ജീവിത രീതി, ആ സമയത്തിന് അതിൻ്റെയൊക്കെ പ്രാധാന്യം വരട്ടെ. അവരുടെ ആചാര മര്യാദകൾ എന്താ, അവരുടെ ജീവിത രീതി എന്താ, അവരുടെ പ്രത്യേകതകൾ എന്താ, ഭക്ഷണം എന്താ, ഒട്ടേറെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ അറിയേണ്ടതുണ്ട്. വായനയിൽ നിന്ന് കുട്ടികൾ അന്യം നിന്ന് പോകുന്നതുകൊണ്ടാണ്, മാറി നിന്ന് പോകുന്നതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഞാൻ ഇക്കാര്യം സൂചിപ്പിച്ചത്. ഒട്ടേറെ പറയാനുണ്ട്, ഞാൻ പറയുന്നില്ല സമയമില്ലാത്തതുകൊണ്ട്. മറ്റ് മൂല്യബോധം, ശാശ്വതമായ ചില മൂല്യങ്ങളുണ്ട്. മനുഷ്യ സ്നേഹം, സഹജീവികളുള്ള സ്നേഹം, കരുണ. അത് വിട്ടുകൊണ്ട് ഈ മാറിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന മൂല്യങ്ങളുണ്ട്. പഴയകാലത്തുണ്ടായിരുന്ന പല മൂല്യങ്ങളെയും നമ്മൾ തള്ളിക്കളഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. പല പുതിയ മൂല്യങ്ങളെയും നമ്മൾ സ്വീകരിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഇവിടെയാണ് നമ്മുടെ പ്രോപ്പറിറ്റി ഓഫ് തോട്ട്, ചിന്തയുടെ ഔചിത്യം. ഏത് തള്ളണം, ഏത് കൊള്ളണം. നല്ല വായനയും ചിന്തയും ചർച്ചയും പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളും ഉണ്ടെങ്കിലാണ് അത്തരത്തിലുള്ള തിരഞ്ഞെടുപ്പ് നമുക്ക് സാധ്യമാവുള്ളൂ. മൂല്യബോധമുള്ള വ്യക്തികളെയാണ് സമൂഹം മാനിക്കുന്നത്, നമ്മുടെ സബോർഡിനേറ്റ്സ് അംഗീകരിക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ അത് ഒഴിവാക്കാനായിട്ട് പറ്റും. ഞാൻ ചുരുക്കി പറയണേ. മറ്റൊന്ന് അവസാനമായിട്ട് കലാബോധം. എന്ത് കാര്യങ്ങൾ നമ്മളെ ചെയ്തു തീർത്തോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവസാനിപ്പിച്ചോ എന്നുള്ളത് പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഒരു കാര്യം. അതേപോലെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഒരു കാര്യമുണ്ട്, അതെത്ര മനോഹരമായി ചെയ്തു തീർത്തു. അപ്പം എന്തും മനോഹരമായി ചെയ്യാനുള്ള ഒരു മനോഹരമായ മനസ്സും കൂടെ നമ്മൾ രൂപപ്പെടുത്തണം. ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടെ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ഈ അവസരം തന്ന മണപ്പുറം ഫിനാൻസിൻ്റെ ശ്രീ VP നന്ദകുമാർ ഉൾപ്പെടെയുള്ള അതിൻ്റെ സംഘാടകർക്ക് ഞങ്ങളുടെ അഭിനന്ദനങ്ങൾ അറിയിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് നിർത്തുന്നു. നന്ദി.
താങ്ക് യു സർ. വിദ്യാഭ്യാസത്തിൻ്റെ ഒപ്പം തന്നെ വിജയത്തിന് ആവശ്യമുള്ള ചേരുവകളാണ് അദ്ദേഹം ഇവിടെ സൂചിപ്പിക്കേണ്ടായത്. ലോകബോധം, കലാബോധം, കാലബോധം, മൂല്യബോധം എന്നിങ്ങനെ 4 അവേർനെസ് നമുക്ക് ആവശ്യമാണെന്നാണ് അദ്ദേഹം സൂചിപ്പിച്ചത്. താങ്ക് യു സോ മച്ച് സർ. ആൻഡ് ഓൾസോ നൗ ടു ഫെലിസിറ്റേറ്റ് ദി ഗാദറിംഗ് വി ഹാവ് വിത്ത് us yet another person of great repute. It is with great joy that I invite Sri Vijay Kumar, the Chief Commissioner of Income Tax Department, retired. Sri Vijay Kumar, if you could come forward and talk to us on this occasion.
Mr. Nanda Kumar, and the distinguished guest on the dais of the dais, I stand before you with immense pleasure as I have been entrusted with the task of giving away degree certificates to some of the students in this convocation ceremony. Although I have worked in Income Tax Department and subsequently as Insurance Ombudsman, teaching is the profession which is very close to my heart, which is very dear to my heart. So anything connected with education, I get excited. Even today I am working as a guest faculty in Calicut University John Mathai Center. So, and I would take this opportunity to wish all the best to all the students. Some of them are old, some of them are young, who have graduated from this university. And a degree is not the end of all. What you should try to do is to excel not only in your profession, but also in your life. And a degree should be a helping hand to come out successful in life. I once again thank Mr. Nandakumar and others for having given me an opportunity. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words and your words of encouragement. Before we call it a day, we would like to present a memento to two of our guests who have joined us for the mini convocation here. In order to present the memento, I'd like to invite our CEO and MD, Sri Nandakumar, sir. If you could present the memento, we'd like to invite Sri Vijay Kumar first to receive this memento from us. Thank you for your presence and for your words of motivation. Thank you. And we would also like to express our gratitude to our very dear Avas Master. We would like to present a memento to him. He seems to be one of your favorite teachers. I find very good, strong ground support when he is involved here on stage. Thank you. And now, it would be unfair if we fail to thank all of you, all our guests, in order to formally propose the vote of thanks. Once again, may I request Sri Suraj Nandan, Senior Vice President, Manappuram Finance Limited, to come forward. Please.
Thank you for allowing me to receive my vote of thanks. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Mr. Avas Master, the principal of Maya College. He has been associated with Manappuram Finance since 2009. And I take the opportunity to appreciate and congratulate all the employees of Manappuram Finance who have successfully completed their MBA program and have come forward to attend their convocation. My sincere thanks to Mr. V.P. Nandakumar, MD and CEO, who has been the driving force behind this whole event. A special thanks to Mr. Ravindra Babu, the Executive Director of Manappuram Finance, for his grace, his presence, and for the introduction of the guest speaker today. May I also take the opportunity to congratulate Dr. Sri Lakshmi for her success in civil services examination and for having raised the occasion. Also, I must also acknowledge a debt of gratitude to the members of the media who has come to cover this event. I express thanks to the audience and staff of Lulu Convention Center, Oscar Event Management, and for all the excellent arrangements made. And I also thank our special guest here, Mr. Vijay Kumar, for having blessed this occasion. Finally, a special appreciation and thanks to all the conveners and all the employees and family of Manappuram, who has made this event a grand success. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are ringing the closing bell. May I call Robert Frost? The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but we have promises to keep and miles to go before we sleep. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to a close of the 15th V.C. Padmanabhan Commemorative Lecture and Awards for Excellence 2017. Let us all grow together. Let us close with a national anthem.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल रणभङ्गा विन्ध्य हिमाचल यमुना गङ्गा उच्चल जलधितरङ्गा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय